Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here, and it is finally here for everyone, the review of the Dino Team Up episode. Grid Connection, as you know, this is my US review of it, and I cover it in the international airings, and lots of people watch it in the international airings, but they're based on the comments in my reviews so far this second half of the season. There actually was a decent amount of people holding out. So now it was finally here for everybody, and honestly, this episode was a disappointment. Unfortunately. And I explained this in my international airings reviews, but what made this extra disappointing for me is that they ended up giving me some level of expectations. Now, I didn't expect at any point during this to be amazing, but the thing is if you guys know me, I'm sick of team-ups, I'm sick of crossovers, I think we've overdone it. I don't want to hear about it for 100 years. So I really wasn't that excited about this team-up for the most part. Compared to some other people, and I didn't have very high expectations going into it. In fact, I expected that what we got in this episode to be roughly what it was going to be. This is basically what I expected. However, that being said, when the second half of Beast Morphers came back, they kind of set me up with some expectations. Now, I didn't immediately think like, oh, now this is going to be the best thing ever. But from the beginning, with the Mayor Daniels arc to the first two Dino Team Up parts, I think they proved that they were doing some cool stuff. So I'm like, oh, this actually might be decent. And I really quite liked Dimensions in Danger. So I was like, oh, maybe it'll basically be Dimensions in Danger style. Because we unexpectedly had the first part with the Dino Charge Rangers, the clip show, not to mention, as I talked about in the previous weeks, there was kind of a nice through line right from the beginning of the Mayor Daniels arc through now that made all the episodes feel connected. So I was like, oh, there actually might be a little more effort put into this than I thought. Not saying there wasn't effort put into it, because I'm sure everyone worked hard on it, except the writers. It didn't set me up, I want to make it clear that it didn't set me up to have super high expectations, but it set me up to expect a little something more, because the handful of episodes that came before it had shown a little bit of good faith. And then this episode kind of dropped the ball, to be quite honest. And it starts off weird, because Keeper shows up and he's like, I feel a disturbance in the morphing grid. And I have a theory coming out about that I made a while back during the international one, but I held it off for this. But anyway, self-plug. This is something I hate they did with Devin this season, because I like Devin. But there's like at least 3 times in this season where they don't care where his character's at in his development or personality, but they use him for a plot. And he's like, I don't care about this, I want to play video games. And especially a whole season and a half in, this felt so out of character and contrived, and I feel like there could have been a million other reasons to separate him from the group. Because the thing is he's like, well, this is just a hunch, I'm gonna go play video games. And so while he's out, the other Rangers get a distress call from the Dino Charge dimension, and they go over to find it. And Evox is over there trying to make his ultimate Zord, and all that jazz. And so Devin's not there to see it, but he is there to get, not hit, but like he's near a meteorite when it hits. And he brings it back to the base to find out the Rangers are kidnapped. And he's like, oh man, I'm gonna need help now. And then they go to this weird, like, morphing grid communication station. Get help with this meteorite thing. And the grid winds up searching out Jason, portaling him there, and then the meteorite gives him, and the grid gives him, a Tyrannosaurus coin. This whole scene confused me on multiple levels. I'm gonna put a pin in it and talk about it at the end. But it was weird. And then Jason's like, we're gonna show him some real dino power. Except it wasn't real, it sounded weird. Like, Jason felt off in this episode. I know he hasn't played the character in a while, but he just felt off. Also, they should have let him keep the beard. The proof's right here. Because ASJ looks badass with the beard. I talked about this in the international review as well. I don't know why they made him shave it for this. But anyway, he and Devin are going to rescue the others, and when they hook up with them, Tyler's like, there's no time for introductions. I'm like, yes there is, I want more character interactions. And then they get into the big battle, and they summon the rest of the Dino Charge Rangers, and they summon the Dino Thunder Rangers because Dino Power! And they're just, the soulless suit versions. And we get into the Sentai footage. Evox creates his big Zord, which is a monster from the Sentai footage. We do the Megazord team-up stuff, and we save the day. And then all the Rangers say goodbye at the end and go through their portals. Jason had a nice moment, sort of, a legacy pass-on moment, which I did like. But this episode felt so rushed. And, I wasn't that much looking forward to or caring about this, but after the first few episodes, I was really hoping we get a little bit more with Jason, that it wouldn't feel so contrived. I knew that they were going to use the footage, and we seemingly weren't going to have anybody from Dino Thunder. I was secretly hoping for a surprise that they may have even just contacted Kevin to do the voiceover because he seemed willing. Again, Jeffrey Prazzo just voicing everybody. But there was lots of little things that bothered me in it. So let's start with the Jason stuff. Again, he felt off and out of character. And I wish we would have gotten a little more from him. I didn't expect him to turn to the camera and tell us everything he's been up to, but I was kind of hoping to get an idea of what he was doing. You know, with Tommy, it was obviously a little bit of a different story because he had previously been back in Dino Thunder, but in Dimensions in Danger, within a couple scenes that maybe amounted to a minute of screen time, we got to catch up with him a little bit. He's married to Kat, he's got a kid, he's still living in Reefside, he's got a Master Morpher. Sure, we still don't know where the Master Morpher's from, but within, like I said, about a minute of screen time if you gather it all up, we got to catch up with him and know what he's been up to a little bit since then. Some questions, sure, but we got a vague notion and, you know, it was nice. So I was hoping for something similar with Jason. I was hoping to get an idea of what he's been up to, especially since he's a little bit more mysterious. And the way they went about contacting him was so freaking weird, especially since they've set up Grid Battle Force to be connected to the other Ranger worlds and other teams, and they have a Ranger Vault. So I did a theory video back during the national airings about like maybe Jason's involved in Grid Battle Force or the boss or something, and you know, that obviously didn't happen, but how easy would it have been for him to call Jason up? I would have liked that if Jason was a contact with Grid Battle Force, and instead of using this weird morphing grid thing and he comes through a portal which made people think that he's from a different Earth, but Beast Morphers are supposed to be the Prime Earth. I think they just portaled him there. Kind of like how Cisco can vibe from, you know, Star Labs to the villain. Like, he's not vibing to a different Earth, he can vibe to the same Earth. So that's what it is. They're on the same Earth. Anyway, but that was so weird. It's like they established, he calls Dr. K, they established they have all the Ranger records, they have a Ranger Vault, and yet instead of coming up with a solution of, hey, we got a contact in Grid Battle Force, one of the original Rangers, it's like, let's put him through a magical grid portal. And then him getting the coin from the meteor was so weird. It's funny because I feel like they were trying to, for once, give a reason why a Ranger has a power back when he supposedly didn't. You know, because very often in these team-ups, they will have powers or they'll have something that was supposed to have been destroyed, and there's very little, if no, explanation. But this time they're actually trying to give an example, but I felt like it created more confusion. And maybe the reason they did it was because Rocky was just MMPR Red last season in Ninja Steel. But you could have assumed it was the Ninja Coins or something? I don't know. But then last time we did see Jason, he had the powers. And see, the thing with that is yeah, it's kind of annoying in stuff like Forever Red, which I just recently re-reviewed, so it's on my mind, that you don't know, like, okay, well, why does he have these powers? Why does he have these powers? Why does he have these powers? That's for 3 different people. But, you know, it's fairly easy to infer. And after once a Ranger, I low-key just assumed Sentinel Knight could just restore anyone's powers. But anyway, that's like a small potatoes thing. For me, stuff like this is more annoying. Whereas this really weird explanation of why Jason's here with powers that created 5 more questions. Whereas if he just had the Morpher, I would assume he somehow got it revived and still had it since Forever Red. And then there's stuff like, my other main complaint about this is the soulless suits thing. Obviously the primary reason they did this is because they had the Go Busters Dino Team-Up footage. And we did get a sizable amount of the Dino Charge Rangers back, and then we got Jason back. But obviously we didn't get anybody else from MMPR back, and anybody from Dino Thunder back, especially Dino Thunder. At least when you had Jason there, you had somebody from that team. But I hate soulless suit team-ups. Like I said, I'm sick of team-ups, but when they're just the suits and you know the actor's not there, it feels so shallow. And this feels like Russian nesting doll shallow because most of them weren't there for the Sentai team-up either, and then they're not here for this team-up, so it just felt empty. And even though there's some obvious cool moments in that last one, for me the whole last battle just felt empty. It felt like empty suits, empty everything. And the Dino Thunder Rangers annoyed me the most, because then at the end they're like, we're gonna go back to Reefside. And that's such a small nitpick, and I feel like such a complainer, but it's like, the Dino Charge, unless they pulled them out of time. Maybe in my headcanon they pulled them from 2004. But when the Dino Thunder Rangers came back for the SPD team-up, the whole point is they all moved away from Reefside and were doing cool things. So why would they be in Reefside? Their powers were also supposed to be out. So it's little things like that that make me mad. Like the idea of Jason coming back with the Morpher and we don't know how. I mean, Tommy came back with the Master Morpher and we don't know how. Is a small potatoes thing compared to little things like that for me. So yeah, I feel like I just ranted a lot about this. Like, just for me, overall, this felt like a very hollow, rushed, and clunky team-up. And I think especially with the build-up, that they showed that they were doing some cool stuff with connectivity, that this could have been a lot better. I think they could have given us some more character interactions, given more with Jason, giving us a little bit of an update on it. It really just felt like a hollow disappointment, and it's unfortunate. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of expectations, but the setup before this episode kind of gave me expectations that it might be a little bit better. But what did you guys think? Did you actually enjoy this? Do you feel any of the similar things to what I am feeling? If you rewatched it after seeing the international airings, did your mind change? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps, entering that bell, notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.